Hello everyone, welcome back to A Guy Called Henry, and welcome to a new feature on the channel, 6 things we learned from Bohachuk versus Ortiz Jr. And before I get into it guys, I have to give a massive shout out to my good mate George Benson, the biggest Chelsea content creator on YouTube. We used to live together in Bali, we had a studio together and I used to help produce some of his content. He's an absolute goat in the YouTube game, and this is a feature he does on his channel for Chelsea matches, and I thought, do you know what? That is something we need to bring to boxing. I like the format, I like the structure, and I think it's something that you guys are going to enjoy. So big shout out to George, the creator of this format. I did speak to him before I did this, so he knows I'm going to give this a crack in boxing. So let's see what we got here. This was an absolute war, guys. A fight that could have gone either way at times. I feel like Bohachuk will feel extremely hard done by, given there was 2 knockdowns scored for him in the fight. He won a lot of rounds. I will give you my score at the end of this video, so hold on to the end of the video if you want to hear what my scorecard was. But nonetheless, it was a difficult fight to score. It was very, very close, a lot of close rounds. But let's get straight into this. So box number 1 is a green box for the overruled slip in round 1 that was eventually scored a knockdown for Bohachuk. It's a difficult one because you know what, guys? It wasn't a super hurtful punch. It was definitely what we'd call a flash knockdown. But regardless, there was a punch landed and Vergil Ortiz did go down. So by the letter of the law, that is a knockdown. I know what people will say, he wasn't really hurt. I know it was because I think his legs may have been a little crossed. I think he was just slightly off balance, and that was what caused the knockdown rather than it being a really hurtful punch. But regardless, by the letter of law, that is a knockdown, and so rightly, later in the fight, that was overturned. It was actually a huge moment in the fight because that would have given it clearly to Vergil Ortiz, and definitely it affects your tactics moving into the later rounds, knowing that you're potentially further down on the scorecards than you may otherwise have been. Box number 2 is an orange box for the Vergil Ortiz jab. I liked what he did with the jab in this fight. There was moments when Vergil went onto the back foot, showed us a different look to his game, and he, the jab was lovely. It was lovely and fast and slick, and he showed us a different look. The problem with his jab, and the reason this is an orange box rather than a green box, is firstly, I feel like he neglected it at times and he went away from it when it would have been a great tool in moments. And I felt like he didn't always use it at the right time. And there was definitely moments when Bohachuk was getting the better on the inside. And there was definitely times when Bohachuk was getting the better from range as well. And it was just choosing the right moment to switch up the tactics and be a bit less predictable. So it's an orange box for that reason, but also because he has a fundamental issue, Vergil Ortiz, in that he brings that lead hand back low. And I talk about this a lot. I understand that a low lead hand has its benefits. It comes from out of your opponent's line of sight. So it's very difficult for them to defend against. But it also means that there's an opportunity for your opponent to counter, and Bohachuk was landing that right hand, that straight right backhand, multiple times in this fight, and very effectively too. So it's an orange box for that lead hand because it's a great tool for Vergil Ortiz. Clearly the guy can box as well. He's got different dimensions to his game, but at times it was also responsible for him getting hit clean. Box number 3 is a green for the Vergil Ortiz bodywork. I thought that on the inside, at times in this fight, Vergil Ortiz was landing really spiteful, really powerful body shots. And in general, Vergil Ortiz's power was what gave him some of the rounds for me in this fight, because there was times when they were landing pretty similar amounts of shots, but Vergil Ortiz was landing the more effective work, the bigger, more powerful, more hurtful punches. And if I was going to say anything about Bohachuk that maybe holds him back a bit, and despite the fact he's got so many stoppages on his record, is that he does seem to throw arm punches a bit at times, and technically he looks a bit weird. Super effective, clearly, and the punches are definitely hard enough to stop someone, but between the two of them, you could see that Vergil Ortiz carried the more power of the two men, and the punches seemed to, by and large, affect Bohachuk more than they affected Vergil Ortiz, which is weird to say because Vergil Ortiz was the one who got knocked down twice, but both knockdowns were kind of flash knockdowns. They were a bit strange. I need to see them again. I've not seen any replays yet. Definitely the first one was a flash knockdown, and the second one, I believe it was in it was round 8. That was, again, it seemed like a flash knockdown, and Vergil just touched down with his glove. Didn't seem too hurt. So I would like to see those knockdowns again before commenting further, but it's going to be a green box for that Vergil Ortiz bodywork. Box number 4 is a green box for Bohachuk's output and toughness. He got hit with some monster shots early on, but he actually grew into the fight and got stronger and stronger as the rounds went on. His punch output didn't really waver from round to round. He was relentless. He ate some massive shots from Vergil Ortiz, and we've seen this is the first fight where Vergil Ortiz has gone the distance, but Bohachuk, he just couldn't be stopped. He was so relentless in his work coming forward. He was not to be deterred. There was a few moments where it looked like his legs were a little bit shaken by Vergil Ortiz, but he still kept working. He still kept coming forward, and it was just a super impressive from him. Really attritional stuff. It wasn't just hard work and brute force, though. He also showed a cuter side to his game. I felt like he threw at the right moments. I feel like he let Vergil Ortiz get off some of those bigger shots. And because Vergil Ortiz was loading up, it then gave Bohachuk opportunities to counter off the bigger punches that Vergil Ortiz was throwing. But that was, a risky strategy because it was Bohachuk trusting his defense, trusting that he could ride out those big punches and big shots and stay in the pocket. And there was moments in the fight where Bohachuk was simply outworking Vergil Ortiz. And as the fight went on, definitely in those mid to late rounds, I felt that Bohachuk looked the fresh of the two. Vergil Ortiz did come roaring back at the end, and he started to box on the back foot and look a bit slicker. And I had him winning 2 of the last 3 rounds, Vergil Ortiz, when he really needed all of them for me. But nonetheless, I just had to give some credit to Bohachuk's toughness and his work rate. Absolutely exceptional. Box number 5 is a red box for Vergil Ortiz's punch speed variation. Now, I know that sounds quite specific, but one thing I noticed about Vergil Ortiz in this fight was that he was quite one pace throughout. He didn't really seem to change up the speed of his shots. And so whilst early on, Bohachuk struggled to get used to the power, once he did, it became quite predictable. It really reminded me of Amir Khan, where guys early on in fights against him would struggle with the speed, but after a while they start to get used to it. And you really need to vary the speed of your punches so that they find it harder to time you defensively. So it's harder to know, when's this punch going to hit me? He's going low now. Is he, and you definitely want to vary the speed, vary the power, because it just makes you more unpredictable, harder to read and harder to defend against. You want to throw some shots that are a bit more tippy-tappy and then load up, throw low, throw high. And for me, I felt Vergil Ortiz was very one-paced with his shot speed and power in this fight. Had he varied it a bit more, I think he could have created a few more openings and opportunities to land clean on Bohachuk. And finally, box number 6 is a red box for Terence Crawford versus Vergil Ortiz Jr. I personally do not think Vergil Ortiz Jr. is ready for Terence Crawford. I don't think on that showing he is there yet. I think he's got all the ability and all the talent to get there, but Bohachuk showed tonight that I think tactically he's got a bit to work on. I feel like he did the wrong things in the wrong moments, and I just think that this was a very, very close fight. I'll tell you my score. I scored the fight 114-112 to Bohachuk. The knockdowns made the difference for me. And, look, I don't have a problem with the draw either. The last round, it was a very close final round. I gave it to Bohachuk, but it could have been a Vergil Ortiz round as well, and that would have made the fight a draw. So judge number 1 had the fight a draw, and I would have been absolutely fine with that. The other 2 judges gave it to Vergil Ortiz, so Vergil Ortiz got the split decision win. It was 114-112 on their cards. Again, I don't have a massive problem with those cards. It was a very close fight. That's just what I scored it. I would want to watch the fight back again to give it another score, to go over my scorecard, to go over those rounds and see how I feel looking at them again. But that was off the bat my gut reaction. There was a couple of rounds I had to kind of wait right to the end to see which way I was going, and it was a very close fight. So 114-112 either way, I don't have a huge problem with. The draw I don't have a huge problem with. But if you're Bohachuk, given he got 2 knockdowns as well, I think you're going to feel very, very hard done by. So it's a red box for a Terence Crawford fight that some people were talking about before this. Some people felt at 154 that was a great matchup to make and a great fight. For me, it should be the rematch next. I would want to see this fight again. It was fantastic. Although what I would say is it's not the kind of fight you want to have too many times in your career, because that sort of fight, that sort of war of attrition where you're both taking big shots, is one that does take miles off the clock. And, just generally I want to say both men hugely tough. Great work rate from both men. Both men, had huge success in the fight. Both men had moments where they were hurt. I would say that, to be fair, actually, Vergil Ortiz was never too hurt in the fight. Bohachuk, I'd say, was the one who showed... and it's weird to say that because he was knocked down twice, but Bohachuk, out of the 2 of them, I'd say he was the one where he had wobbly legs and moments, but he always managed to ride out those moments, cover up, and he was good defensively. I think another major comment I want to make before I leave this video about Vergil Ortiz is defensively, he can be a bit suspect. And I mentioned it earlier, that low lead hand, I don't think it does him any favors. And, I like the fact he's willing to sit in the pocket and take risks defensively. I think his head movement is very, very good. But with someone with the punch output of Bohachuk, it meant that he got hit more than he should be. And it's something that he's going to have a look at. I might do a technical breakdown of this fight at some point, but right now, this is just my instant reaction. I would definitely want to watch it back and slow things down to be able to make a bit more of a technical commentary on the fight. As again, I reiterate, I scored the fight 114-112 for Bohachuk. I think he can consider himself very unlucky not to get the decision, but I don't have a huge problem with the fight going to Vergil Ortiz. I don't know what's next for both men. I think Vergil Ortiz-Madrimov could be a really interesting fight to make. Vergil Ortiz against Charlo potentially. But ultimately for me, I think the rematch is the right next thing to do. I think Bohachuk deserves it. He was the champion in this fight. So yeah, I definitely would feel hard done by if I was Bohachuk. But fair play to Vergil Ortiz, fair play to Bohachuk. An excellent display from both men. And the main thing is that they both come out of the ring safe tonight. It was an absolute war. It was a brilliant fight to watch. I'd highly recommend you go and check it out if you didn't see it. But that's everything from me. That's my instant reaction. That was 6 things we learned from Bohachuk versus Vergil Ortiz Jr. Please like the video. Please subscribe to my channel, A Guy Called Henry. We're trying to do things differently over here. We're trying to do some cool and exciting new content in boxing. I promise you I'm going to be consistent and regular with this. And I'm just getting my teeth stuck into everything right now. So please subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below. Who do you think won this fight? What do you think the score was? What did your scorecard say? Do you think that Bohachuk was hard done by? Do you think that the first knockdown was a knockdown? And as I always say, on to the next one.